You see, we are already lined up here, so I'm going to sit down as the rest of us. And we move now in the next, and actually also the last plenary of this conference. And we shift our focus to one of the most powerful tools that we have in the early childhood development field, and this is networks. Yeah? The ISSA network. You all are part of networks. This is also one of the reasons why you came to attend this conference. And the importance, actually, of networks cannot be overstated. And in today's panel, we will explore the power of networks in catalyzing and sustaining system changes in the early childhood development field. And we all have heard a lot over the last 2 days about that networks create a space for collaboration, for knowledge sharing, for collective action, and we know how important this is. We have heard this actually in both our keynotes yesterday and today. And these are challenges that no single organization can actually face on its own. And whether it's influencing policy or improving program quality or trying out solutions for new challenges or scaling also of successful initiatives like the step-by-step program, for instance, networks have had a critical role to play and still play in shaping sustainable systems for healthy, rounded, and, I should add, equitable, because this is a very important word for us, equitable early childhood development. So with this panel, actually, let's better understand how to use networks and the network mindset. I've used this terminology already yesterday, to create stronger impact for young children and their families. And let's also use this session for sharing examples of how 2 foundations that we have here and networks that operate at regional, country, and local level face the issues that we have in our field. And also, we would like to use this panel to see whether we can sensitize more actors about the importance to use a network way of working, and you will hear more what we understand by this in the panel, to play a strong role in strengthening the ECD ecosystem. Well, here with us, and you have all the names here, but I go now from the outer end. There is Patricia Núñez Zamora. She's the early years expert of the Bernard van Leer Foundation, a very important funder in the early childhood program over more than 50 years. I know this because I worked for Van Leer Foundation many, many years back. And then there is actually Eleonora Kulcha, and Eleonora Kulcha actually, she presents an organization. She's the executive director of the charity foundation Blago, and she heads the Blago Center in Ukraine. And with all that has happened over the last 2.5 years in Ukraine, the issues of Ukraine are very much at our heart. Next to her is actually one of her partners in the work that they do, and this is Eva Derk. Eva has been introduced. She's the director of Partners for Hungary Foundation. Then next to Eva is Hassan Issa, and he is actually the executive director of the Arab Network for Early Childhood Development, a very important network in the region, and we are very, very happy you're here because Hassan lives in Beirut. And when we say Beirut, we have an understanding, I think, or we might not have an understanding what is going on there at the moment. So thank you very much for representing the Arab network on ECD. And next to him is Emma Ursic, and Emma is the representative of actually an executive officer of the Human Safety Net Foundation, and this Human Safety Net Foundation is part of a much bigger outfit, and this is Generali, who sell insurances and other things and make our life more secure. And then next to her, you all know, is Liana, and Liana is representing here ISSA as one of the regional networks. And so welcome everybody. And we have actually prepared. Let me see whether I find this now. We have actually prepared not only we have prepared 2 short videos, because actually Patricia is here standing in also for her director Michael Feigelson, who couldn't be here with us because he's actually ill, and Michael has sent actually a videoed message that we will hear in a moment. And then later on, we have also from Eleonora, we have a video contribution, and then also something in person. So, and we have prepared for our panelists, we have prepared a few questions, and we will actually start with the 2 foundation representatives, because it's very important for networks to receive funds to do the work that they do. And please share with us, Emma and Patricia, your reflections on the importance of the network mindset and how your foundation understands this and how it is applied. Yeah? So should we start with Michael first, okay, and then you'll add to that?
I complement.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Mike Feigelson from the Bernard van Leer Foundation.
Sorry that I'm not able to be there with you in person. I had hoped to be there, but my colleague Patricia will be representing the foundation on this panel. Liana asked me to say a few words since I wasn't going to be able to be there in person, so these are a few words. I was thinking about her question, why networks are so important, and I was thinking back on the last 20 years or so that I've been working in the field of early childhood and what's changed, but also what's remained consistent, what's stayed the same. And I think that there are certain groups of people that are really critical to building community that have stayed consistent. They're always there when you need them, and that the regional networks in particular represent these pillars of our community. I'm thinking about leaders like Liana, like Hassan, who I know is also there with you, and Sophia, also Evelyn, and Lynette, who I believe are not there, but run other regional networks. For us as a foundation, the networks are a source of learning. If we want to find out what's going on in a particular region quickly, we know who to ask, as well as a way of quickly sharing with folks that are really focused on early childhood development, new ideas or new insights. So in that sense, they really facilitate communication, which is so critical to building a community that advocates for young children and their families to make sure everybody gets a good start in life. So that's why we support the networks and find them of great value. And I think these are the few words that I have to offer today. Wishing you a great conference, or if this is played at the end of the conference, wishing you a safe journey home and hope the conference went well.
Okay, so we have played it at the beginning of our panel. So in addition to what Michael said, yes, Patricia, in terms of the regional networks are facilitators of communication, they create continuity, there's always, yes, there to answer also questions and...
Yes, and I think I'm going to connect it with the discussion that we having during yesterday or today also about this continuity that you were mentioned, because, and Michael also mentioned this importance of this kind of fabric or ground, common ground that networks provide that build this continuity, because government can change, expert can move, there's a lot of things that can change, but we do have these networks that somehow provide this continuity, They have all these learnings from years and years. We saw the book, for example, you know, these platforms where we can go and find that learnings. And that learnings are not only important because they provide, I don't know, evidence or research. It's because now, and we have been discussing that, we need to move very quickly. I mean, we have several challenges around the world. The context is very, very challenging, so we need to respond quickly in the field of early childhood development, and we can't invent the wheel, reinvent the wheel every time. We do have this knowledge, we do have these people, and so I think that's one piece. Another piece is like we can learn a lot about this mindset, this network mindset, because it still is a challenge. We live in this world that maybe promotes more competency and not collaboration. And I know that for networks also is a challenge to work in this interconnected way, but you are ahead on that learning. So for the work in countries, for the work in other contexts, I think we all can learn a lot about how to work interconnected. So yes, only to add 2 points.
Yeah, yeah. Emma, I give you the word. How
hello.
is it for you?
So
How
yeah,
you
I think
experience this?
it's. I imagine like an onion. You got all the different layers, starting from us. Like you mentioned, we are called the human safety net. We should have had work maybe, but. And our annual meeting, where we meet all our partners, is called Networks, meaning networks, but also network. So the idea is how does being together create that additionality rather than having the relationship between the foundation and the single partner. So we have Generali behind us, like you said, it's an insurance company, but when we created the foundation, we didn't call it the Generali Foundation to favor the idea of working together. So it's the human safety net, which is one step apart from the company. I think that's an interesting concept to share that maybe not a lot of corporates necessarily want to do. And the idea from the beginning is that this is an open architecture where we share and we are together with other organizations. So from the beginning and from the inception in our strategy, we did think about the networks, the idea of a network. And we gather our partners together in order to kind of learn from one another, and then we connect them to the networks such as ISSA and ARNEC, and where we are in our markets. We are in 26 countries, mainly Europe and Southeast Asia, a little bit of Latin America. And I think there's a lot of value in bringing people together, like you said, Patricia, to avoid reinventing the wheel. When we move to a new country, we typically go to ISSA or to ARNEC and kind of try and understand who are the players there. So there's a lot, I think, to be learned from working together, even more than we do today. And yeah, for us, it's basically a way of thinking and being from the beginning, and very intentional.
Well, I hear that, I mean, with Bernard van Leer, it's like this, and also your foundation is called, it has this concept of net already in the title, you know. So how have your two foundations been supporting networks over the years, including also the regional networks? And in your view, how could the early childhood field actually benefit even more from supporting such networks?
So I think we support in different ways, I would say. Of course, we support, like, we are part of these regional networks funds, for example, so we support like in very concrete way, because we truly believe that networks, we need this kind of work, and we need to reinforce these connections. Also, it's a different way of supporting that is being part of conversation, discussion, connect each other, connect network between each others as well. Maybe also to connect networks with local networks, with different things that we are learning in the field, the things that we hear in different spaces. So it's kind of I will say, like, connected all the time and bringing these different voices to the conversation. But in concrete, we also, like, we are supporting through fundings. we truly believe that it's very important to support this network because not only they have this knowledge that we were talking, this capacity also to bring different voices, to bring different actors that maybe we don't see at the beginning, so we need to go there and find, okay, you do know what is going on in that region, for example, so we don't start from scratch. We do have like background, expertise, knowledge, etc. Mike mentioned, but I think this sense of community in the field of early childhood development is crucial. I mean, every time, for example, that a new government arises in some country, if you connect that new people with this kind of, look, there is a community, there is a knowledge, there is a pathway that we have been going through, is kind of moving forward, I would say, with more quality, the task that we want to implement, the thing that we want to do. So I think it's a platform that we cannot miss. I mean, networks need to be there in place, helping in the background, sometimes very invisible, the work that is going on in countries. And also in the discussion at the global level, I would say, like, I mean, for example, this space, you come here today, you organize this as a network, and we can see what are the trends, what are the learnings, also what are the gaps, what are the things that we are not achieving yet. So it's this kind of spaces that allowed us to move forward, I would say, better. So, yeah.
So it's a door opener also, I understand from what you were saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And access to more knowledge and access to more people. Yeah.
And experience.
And
it's not knowledge, it's also
yeah.
experience. You know, the network have this lesson learned, not only about evidence, it's also about what works, what don't work in this specific context with this kind of methodology. So yes, it's more than also knowledge.
Yeah, well,
Emma.
thinking about ourselves, apart from the concept of the way we were created, I'm thinking we're a member of Impact Europe, you know, gathering some of the venture philanthropy actors in Europe, but we're also a member of the same national. And then almost 3 years ago, we joined this idea of a pooled fund, this regional fund that is kind of cooperating and working with the regional networks. And we think there's a lot of value in that, sitting together also with the other donors and to kind of make something bigger together. I think that's very much also from the beginning of the human safety net, is how can the sum be bigger than the single parts? And it's not easy to do. And I think also, you know, like you mentioned, Patricia, a lot of the work is invisible, but I think it's fundamental enabler for the learning, for the sharing, for also meeting people, then from there generate ideas. So I think it's very important. Sometimes it's invisible, which is probably we need to do better there at explaining the value, all of us. But I think it's really important. Also, I think networks is to give voice to the smaller organization that alone would not have it and represent the minorities. I think this is a very important role also of the networks, of a lot of the work that you do on the ground and through the members. And one last point I have, looking at the different networks that we join, is I think the best ones are the ones where you mix the categories. So not just the funders together, not just the NGOs together, but, you know, funders, NGOs, governments. And that's, I think, where the best value for everybody is unlocked, because it's when you have those transversal conversations and networks is that real change can maybe have more chance to be generated on the ground, because, you know, those are the more complex conversations and situations. So I think, you know, representing also the minorities, vertical, kind of horizontal, I think those are the best, I think, value-add situations that we can all benefit from.
Well, if you allow me here, it's not in the program, but really a personal remark. Working in this field and also in the foundation field for a very long time, I mean, in the 90s, it would have been almost impossible to bring together, you know, to the table a number of large foundations, you know, and they fund, actually, they put money in a fund that then is given, you know, to regional networks. It would have been really, really, absolutely impossible. So we are really a very, very, very big step ahead there, I must say. And I'm actually very, very glad that I can facilitate this panel, because I have been watching this developments over the years.
We have Julia and Rosemary here. We can thank them because I'm managing it for all the donors. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. So we'll move actually to the regional networks. We have two representatives here, Hassan and Liana, and who are leading regional networks. And the Arab network actually is very, very active, also for many, many years. And how does ANEC work, Hassan, to leverage the network advantage and to support early childhood, particularly now in this situation of emergency?
Yeah. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I'm not going to read what I wrote. I come from a region which is full of crises, and it has been a long time now. In Palestine, for instance, it started 76 years ago. In Syria, it started 2011. In Yemen, it's 2014. And in Sudan, a few years ago. And in Lebanon, 2 months. Possibly my country will precede every others with the magnitude of destruction and killing. So I come from this crisis area. And what's most important about the network issue is that to have national networks in each place, or else you will not be able to function, and of course to face the problems that young children and their families will face. These are usually children are not the active part of wars, but they are the victims of war and the victims of war. And now, for instance, with the magnitude of children who are killed in the war, we have this proverb that says, the smallest coffins are the heaviest ones. And this is what's happening in our country. What's important about this, that's why, for instance, and I think this is very similar to ISSA in a way, in another, is that ISSA started by getting the national organizations together, networks in each country. We, as a strategy, worked on forming and facilitating the national networks and ECD stakeholders. It should be, as Emma said, that it should be governments, NGOs, experts, academia, everybody, multi-sectoral and multi-disciplinary. Okay. This is very important. By getting these together is the issue of networks. Yeah. And here I should say that it's not an issue of the power of networks. It's an issue of the power of networking, and which makes networks. Networks are not structures. Okay, networks are processes, and these processes form systems. If you are talking about systems, it's networks. It's not one by one. What will these networks do, and at least what did we do in this sense from the start of the Gaza war, okay, in Palestine? Okay, the national networks came together and see what can they do together, and I guess networking is democracy. It's very specific. Networking is democracy. Okay. And that's why, for instance, now the same group that was supporting Palestine now are supporting Lebanon and Sudan. And this is the way of getting people together by networking. issues related to advocacy and communication. And here, the cultural adaptation is very important for each and every country. Okay, and this is one cannot do the work, the mindset of others, okay, of other places. So advocacy and communication is very important. Contextualization, I like the word contextualization better than localization. Localization, it looks like more than of geography. Contextualization has concepts.
Yeah.
And what to do. We had this, for instance, experience in research together, in networking. And it's unbelievable how 6 countries come together and do research together. They democratically put the question, work on the tools, do the sample collecting in each country, okay, and then had a national report and then a regional report, This is very cheap. It's not millions of dollars that are put in research. Each research that we do in 6 Arab countries will cost something like $50,000. Unimaginable, I would say, in six countries, okay? And the number, because all of them are working together, the number of sampling is absolutely marvelous. And in the climate crisis research, it's in 1 month we got 10,000 filled forms. So networks starts with the national, multi-sectoral, and multidisciplinary. Okay, networking is the processes, I would say, that, and systems that it generates. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, as you said, there's so many issues and so many difficulties, and the war situation in your region, and it seems to me that the power and the influence of networks is here even bigger than in some other regions that might not have an open conflict at the moment.
I have one more word about networking, is the ISSA conference. I have to mention that. When you have 400 attendees from 60 countries, this is not a process this is not technical.
No.
This is networking. This is accumulative, long-time networking to get these people together. And let me say that such a conference with 140 sessions, if you are talking about webinars, imagine in 2 days that you are able to give 140 webinars for people who likes webinars. Okay, I think these are numbers that talks about networking.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. Well, Liana, over to you, because I think, how does ISSA leverage the network advantage to drive, the movement at the regional level? And regional here we mean actually Central Europe, Central Asia, and Western Europe. Actually, it's 3 big regions, really. And also while we contribute to the ECD field more broadly.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps before I start going a little bit deeper into how ISSA operates, and we did prepare for you just a few slides to illustrate, I think it's very useful to reflect on the why first. Why networks? And what do we mean by networks? And we have been taught, I think, in recent years with the pandemic and all the wars, just how important networks are, even our own personal networks. Just imagine when we were in lockdown. But also for wider and greater societal issues, for issues like climate change or early childhood development we've mentioned throughout the conference. These complex issues do not belong to one sector or one institution alone, and can only be addressed by a network way of working or networking or network mindset. And I think in times of crisis, it is especially important to do that. And again, if we reflect, what is a network? There are many kinds of networks, coalitions, associations, many, many kinds. But let's reflect a bit on social impact networks, because I think this is what the regional networks are. And also our members on the ground run their own national networks or different kind of groups, and they're all aiming for that impact, societal impact. And what brings them together is a shared purpose. And that shared purpose in our case is to drive a movement for high quality early childhood services, practices, and policies. So those organizations in our region, in Europe and Central Asia, that focus on this thing, working in the early childhood, they find a home at ISSA. And what brings them is the mission, what brings them is this shared purpose. But actually, what keeps them in the network is the community. And once they find that like-minded, the place of like-minded individuals is a way to have more partnerships, as Patricia said. It's a way to share learnings and insights, to foster collaboration, but also to drive together towards a collective impact. And if you think about it, a network actually is the combination of a structure and a community. And you need the structure, and actually that's the invisible part. It's the network mechanisms that facilitate collaboration and shared learning. If you think about it, it's like the connective tissue, and that structure is different from network to network. At ISSA, we organize the structure in a certain way to achieve the result we want. And in fact, in the literature, a definition for social impact network is that it is a network with intentional design for a shared purpose. So you have to be very intentional when you start a network. What kind of network? Is it for learning? Is it as a catalyst? Is it for advocacy? And in our case, we combine the notion of learning. We are a learning community at ISSA, but we're also a catalyst. So our intentional design is all about peer learning, conferences like this, joint learning labs, and opportunities for our members to have their special interest groups, and we promote distributed leadership through these interest groups. And I want to reflect also a bit on diversity. It was mentioned before. A network is different than an organization because that's more homogeneous, but in a network you can have together a small NGO, parents association from Tajikistan, a large university in Belgium, mid-sized NGOs throughout the different countries, and yet together they find so many ways to work together. And if you think about the shared purpose, that shared purpose is actually a combination of the individual passion, and I think throughout the conference and especially the panel before, you can see that individual passion coming through. Individual passion, their organizational strategies that come at play. An organization joins a network because they want to be better at what they're doing in their country. They want to learn more, they want to connect for possible partnerships. And also, another way to describe network is achieving impact at scale, achieving democratization at scale. We've learned the previous panel. But also in times of war, when we responded to the war in Ukraine within a week, we actually had solidarity at scale, what Hassan described. So if you aim at scale, you need networks. It's not enough to have the knowledge. In order to get it into the hands of users, you need networks. And very quickly, I would like to show you how we make impact. In fact, the literature, we are together building the field, studying networks. We are still struggling how to monitor impact of networks, how to measure it, because it's a snowball effect. It's a chain of impact. And sometimes we don't even know impact that happens because a lot of it happens through serendipity. We can capture a little bit, and this is what we've tried to capture to illustrate today. In recent months and the last 2 years since the war in Ukraine, for instance, we have trained in the network more than 230 master trainers, and they have trained thousands and thousands of trainers who in turn trained many practitioners. We are working at scale with the Primo Case approach, and to date we work with 53 cities across Europe, especially Eastern Europe. And of course, through our members, we support them at country level. They influence policies, they influence practices. We've heard that national standards are using the knowledge that we promote through the network. From the office of our network, we influenced at the Council of Europe issues related to the revised Barcelona targets, to the child guarantee. So we can have impact at the very community level, you will hear some more later, but also at the national or European level. And I'll end by showing you our strategy. Our new strategy. In fact, we base it on this notion of the network mindset. And our first goal is how can we strengthen the infrastructure, that invisible connective tissue that supports connectivity, supports solidarity at scale, supports learning and collaboration, and also supports distributed leadership. We believe that it's important for our members to find a platform where they can lead themselves with initiatives. And our second goal is all around strengthening the ecosystem. And I will end very much like my friend and colleague Hassan ended, to challenge the word localization. We believe that actually what we should aim at is to strengthen local actors so that they in turn have the capacity and the platform and the power to design community-based solutions and to strengthen their ecosystem. So in fact, we should approach it not like a one-time localization intervention or localized intervention, but rather a long-time investment into the capacity of local actors. And what better example than the 30 years of step-by-step? This is what it takes. It takes time, it takes effort, but it takes, again, a community and a network with an intentional design to strengthen that community. And finally, we're aiming towards sustainable results. This is what we want, sustainable results for young children and their families, because governments will change. A democratic country, example of Hungary, can become undemocratic overnight. And unless we have strengthened the fabric at the local level and the local actors through this long-term investment, everything we have built over decades could be gone very quickly.
Yeah, thank you, Liana. I think a very good example is, and Eva mentioned this before in the session just before, you know, what is happening in Hungary, but still, you know, Partners for Hungary is there, and you are a democratic voice within your country. And how does your NGO, Eva, actually use the network approach to mobilize actors, those you still have in the country and at community level? Eva, you have...
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to refer back to what Liana has said, that this is a very strategic approach, that we have a lot of commonality in our strategy and the network strategy. So our cooperation is very much based on that. And now I'm sitting as the director of Partners Hungary Foundation in this chair, but I used to be the member of the network on behalf of ECD Foundation that introduced the step-by-step program in Hungary. And I think it's very important that we share the same values and we have been developing together somehow. We will tell you a few examples of how we could react quickly in the war crisis because we were part of the network and we are active members, and because we are in touch in many, many layers, even if we don't meet. But we know each other, we know each other's strategy, we share the same values, And actually, this gave us the motor, the engine, to be able to react quickly, especially in times of crisis. As Liana mentioned, when the war broke, and after Partners Hungary, in Hungary, we realized that most of the refugees who are staying in Hungary are Roma from the Transcarpathian region. We could immediately reflect to the history of our work together in social inclusion, in how we cooperated in inclusion of Roma. And you've heard a lot of, actually the step-by-step program was brought into Hungary to support Roma inclusion. So we share a lot of experiences in inclusion programs. And because we are part of the network to be able to support long-term investments in our country, and you know that NGOs are project-based mostly, and it's very hard to find the funds, so we absolutely need organizations around us, and that's one thing what the network can provide us, access to resources. We are a middle-sized organization within Hungary, and having access to big donors and channeling the message of if you want to successfully implement inclusion programs within a country, you have to cooperate with local people. You cannot work without local Roma if we are talking about local inclusion. And that message has to be hardly channeled to the donors by an organization like us. But working together with ISSA, we could channel this message easily because ISSA helped us. And how we design programs, actually there was a very concrete example of designing a program in the crisis that we could sit together with the representative of the big donor, and Liana could manage to come for a few days and plan together and channel all the network experience to a local project. Mm-hmm. And I think it's extremely important when you design a project, you want a long-term investment. And when big donors came, and I'm sure it's same with almost all of you, they don't want to, and especially in crisis, because you never know when it ends, and donors usually provide money for short time. What your interest in your country is support long-time investments. And ISSA helped us a lot to design a program which meets the intent of the donor and also the interest and the local needs. So this channeling role was extremely important in our case. I would like to reflect back what Liana said, that ISSA trained thousands of people in psychological first aid and also built capacity how to work in municipalities on local level. We were part of those capacity building efforts, and that also helped us to react quickly in time of the crisis. And we trained professionals within Hungary, and we also established partnership with AMNA, who were also part of the design of the psychological first aid program. So actually, ISSA connected us to another organization whom we became even more strong, and actually we could continue this program on local level. And we could implement the Children First program in Hungary, and I'm not going to talk about this program because there will be a session right after this, and we will talk about the Children First program, which was a very complex, comprehensive, long-term effect program which we could implement in Hungary with the help of ISSA. and channeling us to donors. And let me give you, and this will be in Einstein Hall, just right after this panel.
Yeah.
And I would like to give you another example in very short, how
Exactly, because now we
very
come
short,
to Blaho
okay.
Center. Yeah.
We could distribute 13,500 laptops in the region to Ukrainian refugees, mostly children, their families, and those NGOs who are working with refugees. And ISSA could find the donors. Hewlett-Packard provided the laptops, but Hewlett-Packard gave the laptops to Global Business Coalition for Education, which is based in America. And ISSA had a relationship with Global Business Coalition for Education, and ISSA turned to the local organizations, and this is how we could distribute this huge number of laptops to those who are in need within 1 year. Without that channel of networking, actually, it couldn't have been possible.
Yeah. Well, you very well described, you know, this process and how this channeling and how this contextualization and how this flow and how the process works. And now I know that, Eleonora, we have asked you a question around how, you know, this has been working for you. And we have prepared a short, or you have prepared a short video. It is subtitled.
No, this is a slideshow.
It's a slideshow. It's a slideshow, but it's subtitled, and then we will continue our conversation. Yeah. And Eva is translating Hungarian back and forth. Yeah.
You can start.
So, start.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more how this has concretely, impacted your work.
Hát, hogy légy szíves, foglald össze, hogy ez hogyan befolyásolja a munkátokat a hálózat.
Yeah.
Jó napot kívánok mindenkinek. Nagyon sajnos, hogy nem beszélek angolul, 2 percem van, és próbálok belemenni.
Unfortunately, she doesn't speak English. Welcome everybody. She has 2 minutes, so she will be very quick.
Nem az összes, de a részmunkát próbáltuk megmutatni. Háború előtt mink dolgoztunk csak felnőtt és kisgyerekekkel, 2 és 5 év plusz az ők anyukájuk, ez az egyik program volt.
Before the war, they've been working with adults and children between 2 and 5. That was one of their programs.
És a másik meg program az volt, hogy felkészítő iskola roma gyerekeknek 6 és 8 évig.
And also they had preparatory classes for Roma children.
És majd, mikor kitört sajnos a háború Ukrajnába, a romákat nem csak a háború érintette, hanem a nagy diszkrimináció.
When the war broke in Ukraine, Roma people were not affected only by the war, but also by huge discrimination.
Harmadik nap kimentem az állomásra, és meglátom, hogy nagyon sok roma ott van, kis csecsemő gyerekekkel tele volt a roma családok, és nekik nem adtak szállást.
On the third day of the war, she went to the railway station and she considered that only Roma people are there whom nobody wanted to give accommodation and nobody took care for them.
És akkor kapcsoltam, hogy mit kell csinálni, mert a romáknak diszkrimináció miatt nem adtak szállást. Akkor nyitottunk ki márciusban az első sheltert.
When they recognized that nobody wanted to provide accommodation for Roma people, they immediately started to operate their first shelter.
Ez az első shelter volt az összes Ukrajnán első a romáknak, és akkor tartotta fel őtet Reneszánsz a Kijevből Sorosnak a fondja, Roma program.
This was the very first shelter within Ukraine to support Roma people in shelters, and this was supported by Renaissance Foundation, the Soros Foundation from Kiev, the Open Society Foundation from Kiev.
De nagyon-nagyon nagy a bérellet, és ebbe jött az ISSA, amiért nagyon-nagyon köszönjük őket, mert ez mint egy nagy család megmutatta magát, hogy mikor az embernek vagy az országnak nehéz, ő kinyújtja a kezét.
The rental fee of that shelter was extremely high. And ISSA followed all their activities, and this was the point they stepped in and started to help.
Ők behozták az ISSA által bejött nagyon sok donor, és ők hozták be azt a donort, aki vett nekünk egy nem nagy házat, 150 köbmétert, de nagyon nagy földdel.
So it was ISSA who helped Blaho to bring donors on the field and supported them to be able to buy a house which was 150 square meters big, but it has a big ground around it, a big field around it.
És most építkezünk, és emeljük a második emeletet, rekonstrukciót csinálunk, és ebbe is segít nekünk nagyon az ISSA.
So you can see in the pictures and in the film that they are now reconstructing the house and also constructing it, and this is in process, and ISSA is with them and supporting them on a continuous basis.
Ez egy első szociális komplex szociális education center lesz.
So the whole building will serve as a community center, a social center and an educational center.
Ahol tovább is fognak majd élni a menekültek.
And will serve also as a shelter in long run.
és ahol nagyon nagy munka lesz a kisgyerekekkel és a felnőttekkel.
And where they would like to focus mostly on young children and their families.
Az a fontos, hogy az ISSA, ez az a network, amelyik olyan hálózat, amelyik mindenhol összehozi az embereket, és mint egy nagy szív, nagy család.
ISSA
You
is that
understand
kind of
her.
organization that brings together the people, and it's like a big heart and a big family.
Nagyon-nagyon köszönjük, mert nélkülük nem tudtuk volna elérni ezt a mindent, azt, amit most elértük. Köszönjük nagyon.
Without ISSA, they couldn't have achieved where they are now, and they are very, very thankful for
Mindegyik romától, minden roma gyerektől, akiket tudtunk befogadni, és adni ingyen szállás, mostanáig ingyen 3 napos ételt, gigiénát. Ők nevéből mondom, köszönöm nektek.
On behalf of all of those Roma children who were able to eat 3 times a day and had roof above them, she is expressing her special thanks, their special thanks to
És mindegyik donornak, aki ISSA által hozzánk jött. Köszönjük nektek mindenért.
She is thanking for all the donors who came to them through ISSA.
Yeah, thank
Köszönjük,
you.
ISSA.
Thank you. Thank you, Eleonora. I think this was a very vivid example and very direct example of what the power of networks is. Emma, what is your key takeaway from this, what you heard?
Wow. I think the word consultant sometimes is thought of more for like a paid private work, but I think we all, on either side, whether you're an NGO or you're a foundation, or we come to networks to get information, to get advice. So to me, the key takeaway, and also for I think the model going forward for the future of the networks, is that of joining the people, but also advising and creating this chain of people helping people, a bit like we say about the movement of the human sapient. So to me, it's the key role of being in between and facilitating, accelerating, scaling, like Liana was saying earlier. And I think this role of consulting is something interesting that maybe can, be even further developed. Liana, I don't know what you think.
Absolutely.
So thank you for inviting me, and it was very nice to be here with you. Thank you. Sorry, I have to go now to the airport.
Yeah, you have to scappare, as the Italians say. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Emma. Oh, my mic works again. Last question to you. What is your takeaway?
Well,
What do you take home to your colleagues at the foundation so that they open their purses?
I took note. No, maybe some ideas. First of all, what is this spirit of this sense of the network? And for me, it was very important this about this connection between the structure and the community. This is something that has a structure, but also is a community. And here were mentioned words like house and family. So I think this sense of community is very important. It's not only about a structure, methodology, so it's also about process that were mentioned. So I think it's important. It's a way of working. I think, and was mentioned a lot, like they are this kind of platform that facilitate a quick response. So you can base on this learning and you can base on this experience to quick response to crisis, to connect to resources also, and yes, and to provide support to maybe local initiatives. And about the localization, also this importance of how we strengthen local capacity in a longer term. I mean, longer term was something that was very mentioned a lot here. So I think, and maybe it's something that is more like a challenge. How can we tell the story? Because you mentioned, Leanne, about how can we measure results, or how can we evaluate the impact? And I think it's like, how can we tell the story of this kind of work, support, advocacy, technical assistance, connecting people, bringing voices of minority. So how we can tell the story better to show the importance of this work. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Patricia.